So in conclusion, I just wanted to share with you, every single year at the Davos Summit, they talk about the wealth gap. They talk about it being the greatest challenge on the planet. The UN talks about it as the #1 in their global goals. It's the poverty and the wealth gap is really what's happening. What's also interesting is that Margaret Mead said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. And our belief system is that with the WealthE coin, with cryptocurrencies, with blockchain, we have the ability to solve the greatest challenge on the planet. And we really invite people to get involved, not only so that they can have a purposeful impact on the planet, but also fundamentally there's going to be a real opportunity from a business perspective and really where this business is going, where this marketplace is going, and how the WealthE coin unlocks that whole potential. So from my side, I just really wanted to say thank you to everyone. I will put up the details now quickly. If you want to go to the website, you can go to wealthe.io. You can register. At the moment, it's just pre-registrations, and we'll let you know as soon as the white paper is finished. Kevin is also online. You've got his email there and/or SMS. So whether you're interested in investing in the coin and/or in what we do with our wealth partners, really, go out there and connect. For those of you watching the recording afterwards, you can actually click on the link below. And really, from my perspective, Kevin, I know there's a huge amount of questions, and we went over a little bit in terms of the timing. I'm not sure, Michael, David, and Richard, from your time, whether you would mind taking a few extra questions that people have been putting through.
Sure.
So, Kevin, do you want to drive that?
So, Scott, what I've done is I've taken the questions out of GoTo, and I've put them all on Slido. So if you drive it from there.
Okay, so let's go quickly over to Slido. And this is, Kevin set this up very kindly. What I love most about Slido is that the best questions get voted to the top. So if you want to go online, so you should be able to see my screen. The very first question was, Bitcoin is more a store of wealth rather than a transactional currency. Which coin will facilitate mainstream transactional adoption? And I'm just opening it to the floor, so please just jump in. Anyone?
So the simplest answer to that is Litecoin, that has been set up exactly for that purpose, and it is called the silver to Bitcoin's gold, and it existed since 2011. It appreciated quite a lot during 2017 as well, and it is just a question of merchant adoption and of use in transactions for payment for products and services. There are other candidates of tokens that have been designed like that, but for the moment, the best is, in my opinion, Litecoin.
Okay.
So,
yep.
So I'm fairly bullish on Dash. They also have been have had a fabulous community, and we actually worked with them in the early days when they were I met them when they were $1.50 a coin, and when we worked with them, they went up from about $2 to about $5. Today, they're almost $800, and this is in a year and a half. And a lot of it is because the way that they've designed their system is that only about 60% of the miners' rewards go to the miners, and yet the crypto economics still work the same way, because they're still just dealing with what percentage of electricity you have to use to get profitable reward. But they take the other 40%, and about 20% goes to master node holders who secure the network and actually make the transactions faster, and the fees much lower. They're pennies on even the largest transactions, and they're very fast. That's why they call Dash. And they brilliantly, I think, took about 20% and said, this is for the community. This is to be able to go in and pay people salaries, to do advertising campaigns. We got paid in Dash for our PR work. And, back in the early days when it was $1 or $2 a coin, their monthly budget was like, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. Now it's in the tens of millions. And they're able to really just plow all that back into building the community. I'm a big fan of that, what they've done, I consider them, as I mentioned earlier, sort of my core holdings. That if you diversify among your core holdings with, Bitcoin, Cash, Ethereum, and Dash, it all rhymes sort of, and maybe add Monero to that, you are pretty well diversified across several different things. Some people like Ripple, some people like Litecoin. They're all kind of top proven tokens. And then you look for the up and comers, and if you can catch, something like a NEM or a NEO that have done, 1000x over a very short period of time by just, reading the white papers, getting in early, and that's sort of like your portfolio driver. So you put your majority of your speculative investment into things that at least have a fairly good track record and less volatility overall, and then you put your portfolio drivers into, ICOs, where you like the team, like the model, and that's something that you're looking to potentially beat the overall return of Bitcoin, or at least diversify it.
Okay. The next question was, I would like to know the risks for small cell crypto owners when the institutional investors enter the market. Richard, you were talking quite a lot around the institutional space. Do you think that's good for, call us retail investors, or is it bad for us once the institutions get involved?
I think it's long-term fantastic because it's a lot more money in the space, and as we were discussing before, that grows the whole pie. I think in the near term you could see some volatility, particularly when you have options contracts showing up, because it's going to cause, we're talking about larger movements of money, so I think we'll experience more instability in price in the near term. But I'm very long on the category, and I'm very long on Bitcoin specifically. So I think that at the end of the day, over the last 10 years, or the last 2 years really, we've watched some institutions start dabbling in the space. I personally know a couple of people who have very large financial institutions who have, a Trezor wallet that's in a safe in the COO's office, and they're doing it already, but they're not doing it officially until some of the things like custodian, compliance, all the basics that you need in a real financial institution start to roll out over the next year.
Okay. There's the third question here is, are sites like dragonminingsystem.com to mine Bitcoins legitimate? So the question I think should be a little bit more broad-based, which is, there's a lot of these pyramid schemes now that have started up around, Bitcoin mining. What are any of the three of you, what are your thoughts on sort of the Bitcoin mining full stop for the average Joe?
Well, it's not just Bitcoin mining, it's any kind of proof of work mining. I worked with Gigawatt for quite some time. I think they're probably the most legitimate one out there because you're not actually doing sort of a cloud mining or an MLM scheme, because there's a lot of folks who basically say, hey, we're going to pay you back in Bitcoin, and we're going to, give you percentage of like what you can get your friends to do. Some people make money on those, some people don't, and there's just a lot of risks in terms of, what happens if any of those are a Ponzi scheme, if all of a sudden Bitcoin price goes down. I trust basically just doing your research, buying your own hardware gear, and finding a very low cost jurisdiction power-wise to mine. Gigawatt has a facility in Washington State. And you can go in without the Gigawatt token and still get a very low price. It's I think 9 cents a kilowatt, including your rental cost, including your managed service fee, and including the electricity, which is about 2.7 cents. Or you can buy that token off the open market. I think it's about $1.50 now. It went out at $1, and then your price goes down to about 3.5 cents. And last I saw the calculation on that is that counting that token as an asset, because it's not, it's evergreen for 50 years, you'll be able to go in and get Bitcoin at under $3,000 and sell it at 13. So having an asset that then allows you to go and buy other things, is a recurring theme, something that I like a lot. There's a lot of aspects of that in the Wealth Migrate model, and sort of having different levers of crypto economics is something that gets me interested and excited about projects. But I think obviously there's still a lot of profit in mining for those who want to really study it and are willing to go and do the hard work of buying the machines. I think home mining is doing it yourself unless you live in Wenatchee, Washington, or a global place like Iceland or Venezuela, where there's or you happen to have free electricity for some reason, included in your condo's rent or something like that. Which I suppose if you're Bitcoin mining, I'd probably ask you why your bill spiked 1,000%, but it's still a viable model, and somebody has to secure the network. And if you believe crypto is going up, there's typically historically at least a 10% margin across the board on mining.
So a quick one for you, David. Are Bitcoin futures good or bad?
It is a very important recognition by the traditional financial sector of Bitcoin as a solid asset class, upon which not only futures but all kinds of derivatives can be developed, and that in turn allow Bitcoin to penetrate the traditional financial sector and its $1 trillion of moving assets that otherwise wouldn't be able to touch Bitcoin directly. So absolutely is a good thing, and it will be one of the reasons why the U.S. government will never be able to decide to declare Bitcoin illegal if they were ever tried to do so, because the interests of the traditional financial system will be intertwined intimately with Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies overall. Okay.
There was a question that popped up there where they were asking around, when you had original currencies backed by gold, it had an intrinsic value. And the question was, does Bitcoin have intrinsic value? I'd be interested, Richard, on what your thoughts are on that.
So, the funny thing is whenever I hear this, I always question, what the hell is intrinsic value? It's a sort of a nonsense concept, right? I mean, I guess that you could say land has an intrinsic value because you can consume it for something. Oil has an intrinsic value today, but those are all ephemeral states, right? Like land is valuable to us because we believe in property rights, but the American Indians, my ancestors, didn't believe in those things and therefore thought that was a crazy concept. I think that the belief system around Bitcoin today is broadly distributed and well entrenched, which says there's a fixed amount of this. We are accepting that it has value. You can exchange it for other things that have value as well. And so it meets all of the measures of a store of value today. But this intrinsic question is always, you have to sort of go back and say, as opposed to what? And as David said quite clearly, in many countries, and I think including the US, some people are starting to wonder if you need to hedge various stores of value and have a more distributed portfolio approach to your wealth holding, management, and application.
Yeah, I mean, to back you up there, someone should actually go out and create a cryptocurrency that's based on real estate that has intrinsic value.
What a great idea, actually.
There's a top question that's come up here, which I think, Michael, you've actually really answered. Really fascinating what you said about 2020. It says, when do you think the BTC growth will start to flatten out, decline? The upward trend doesn't seem sustainable for years to come. I think Michael, you really answered that earlier when you actually spoke about the different.
Scott, do you mind if I remark on that maybe? Because we shouldn't necessarily concentrate on Bitcoin as we know it today. Actually, I call Bitcoin the winning fork of an ever-evolving blockchain application, and it has been the case that in the past, with the forks, some exchanges were wondering whether they should call Bitcoin one of the new forks rather than the old one, basically hopping over to the winning variant. And as we look at the arc of human civilization, which is the intrinsic value, by the way, which is what we should ask ourselves. What is the intrinsic value of the overall human civilization? My favorite question is, as you see swarms of intelligent robots mining the resources of the asteroid belt, are they going to use coins made out of precious metal or banknotes or the creaky credit card system for transactions out of the 50s, 70 years ago as of now? Or they will be using something modern, possibly a blockchain-based solution to transact among themselves and optimize resource allocation. We are talking about the future of the human-machine civilization as it swarms out in the solar system. And it's not millions, billions, or trillions of dollars. We are talking about quadrillions of dollars of value that are going to be built literally out of thin air, actually even less. It will be built on space where thin air doesn't exist, in vacuum. And that is the bootstrap that we are seeing, because art doesn't have intrinsic value, love doesn't have intrinsic value, but we are still making art, making love, and we are making blockchain.
Well, that's a beautiful way to end off. Guys, I'm very conscious of the time for all three of you, and we said we would have a hard close on the hour. There's obviously loads of questions coming through. What our commitment will be is we will take all the questions and we will try and create an FAQ out of it, because I think we could probably be here all day with people's questions, and thank you for everyone participating so much and really engaging. I wanted to just have a final thought from each one of you, 30 seconds each, around, you've obviously been introduced to us by Scott Myers. You said, Michael, as an example, one of the most important things is in your game is also reputation and trying to pick, the winners, etc. Could I just ask, each one of you in 30 seconds, why do you want to, and are you prepared to get involved and help us with the WealthE coin? I don't mind who wants to go first. Do you want to go first, Michael?
Sure. I like the model from the beginning. I like the fact that it follows the proposition of what I think is going to be big in 2018, which is real companies that have real assets that are then using the token to go and facilitate those assets reaching an even larger group. I'd mentioned Wax before. I brought people into Wax. I'm an advisor at Wax. I got an interest in Wax, and I got so many people to put in. I mean, they raised $80 million, and I in a couple of phone calls, like $5 million of that dollars came from me introducing people in a 3-day period. And the reason was it was very simple. Existing business, $1 billion a month in network revenue, and they were going to go and use a token to get rid of the credit card fees, and which were as high as 60% because they had, about 50% because they had 40% cross-border, which the underlying facility that basically is called OpSkins, that is the world's leading creator of digital skins, which is, if you're a gamer, you know what that is. If not, it's like digital baseball cards for gamers, and there's 400 million users of that, 100 times the amount of users of Bitcoin. And so if you end up looking and saying, oh, $1 billion in monthly revenue, and 300 million coins or whatever, and the number ended up being 200 million and change. If they can get 50% of that billion a month to save all those credit card fees and use the token instead, including just buying the token with the credit card on each end, that's $6 billion a year, and the whole market cap of the entire company is only a couple $100 million. Price has to go up. Supply and demand, scarcity. And with the WealthE token, with Wealth Migrate, you have a lot of the same things. You're looking at being able to go and power real estate crowd-funded projects that are otherwise difficult for a global marketplace to be able to access, while still keeping it in the crypto economics of a utility token. And it's something that really resonated with me. And then, of course, I look and see who else is on the team, and I I see people like Richard Titus. I see people, you know, like Scott, who, you know, I've worked with it over the years, going back to the early 1990s. And, you know, every single company that I've worked with, I read the paper, I meet the CEO, I have conversations about what they're going to do, where they're going to be 5 years from now, you know, how they're going to spend the money. And then when I'm satisfied with that, I look and talk to the investors. And, you know, literally a lot of the top investors, the first question they even ask me before what the company does is, who else is in the deal? And so, you know, that's something that is a trend that, you know, Wealth Migrate has been doing an excellent job of with this token.
Thank you very much for that. Richard, from your side?
So I think what I love about this project is and referring to what Michael said, you know, it passed all my initial tests on team and proposition and market size. But actually, the thing I like about it even more is this idea of distributing access to investing in commercial real estate to less sophisticated investors or investors who are geographically or geopolitically blocked from access to those markets. And I think that's a really powerful thing. It's my hope that this is the first step in modernizing the real estate market and access to investing in real estate, which is a thing that for many people is at best case opaque and complicated, and worst case completely not available to them. And I think it should be. I think that people's investment choices today are limited to an unsavory and not very well performing asset class called stocks, bonds, and funds.
Well, and thank you very much for that. And David, from your side?
Our lifestyles are changing. If it was natural for a family 30, 40 years ago to get married, open a mortgage, stay put for the 10, 20 years needed to pay it off, and then have the home as part of the wealth of the family, the asset base of the family, for many today, not only it is not desirable because they move around so often, but in the most exciting and important hubs in the world, San Francisco, New York, Hong Kong, and elsewhere, it is impossible to buy an apartment or a house for too many, and they shouldn't. Now, through Wealth Migrate, a global supply of real estate is available at an entry point that allows everybody to place it to the level of investment that they can afford. And once again, through learning, which the WealthE coin will afford to anybody, step by step, ever increasing level of sophistication, what it means to be a global real estate investor, that kind of learning is going to be an incredibly precious component of why participating in this initiative is going to allow an ever-increasing number of people to enjoy a future that they will be living together with us.
Awesome. Well, listen, to everyone who's online, I see that we are on the hour. To everyone who's online, it's amazing. Thank you so much for your participation. For all of you that are involved in the WhatsApp group, thank you for the ongoing activity. You know, do share it with your friends. There's a lot of talk happening at the moment, and our most important aspect of this evening was to hopefully introduce you to some of the world authorities in this space so that you can get the right information. You know, to David, Richard, and Michael, we deeply appreciate your time and your knowledge and you guys sharing. And it's, you know, with a huge amount of gratitude that you were willing to actually get involved in this project and really help bring this project to life. And, you know, to all of us, to Kevin, thank you for setting everything up and running the Slido. It's 3 a.m. in the morning, and well, now it's probably 5 a.m. in the morning in Sydney. So thank you very much being up at a ridiculous time. I really appreciate it. And then to our whole team, you know, guys, thank you for continuing to really turn the vision into a reality. And most importantly, I believe that we're all on a purposeful journey, and that this is not a nice to have. This is actually a necessity which we need to do, because the greatest challenge on this planet is the wealth gap. And I believe in our lifetime, using the technologies which are now available, we can all have an impact on this planet and go a long way to solving that grand challenge, which will be part of our destiny. So I really want to thank everyone online tonight. Thank you to our guests. Most importantly, you know, go out of here, share it with your friends, and let them know that we're at the dawn of a new era, an era in which technology can solve the world's grandest challenges. Thank you very much, and good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.